Hello and welcome to another bite-sized episode of the Do the Work podcast. I know your time is precious, so we keep these short and sharp so you can get the information that you need and go away and implement it into your lifestyle with your health and fitness. Just before we get into the episode, all I would say is if you like this content, if you could please share it with a friend, like it and subscribe so that we can get our message out to change more people's lives. Enjoy the episode. When it comes to weight loss, most people fixate on the scales, how much they weigh, and often when the result doesn't tell them what they want it to say, that can basically make them quit, give up, and find themselves in a stop-start routine, essentially, and never really get anywhere when it comes to their progress. So I want to talk to you today about a little bit of getting some understanding across of what's happening when the scales are going up and down, and relate it a little bit to a recent journey that I've had as well and how I've used the scales to help me with regards to my progress. But first, I think the most important thing to cover here is that the scales are a useful variable or a useful metric of tracking our progress when it comes to weight loss, but usually not if they're the only metric of progress. So when we're working towards a goal, be it weight loss, we want to make sure that we've got a few variables that we're using, the scales being one of them. Photos can be pretty good, and then also circumference measurements and things like that as well. But ultimately, we've got to remember that usually we're doing this to feel better in our clothes, feel better in certain outfits, feel better in certain occasions and social occasions maybe. So we can also use that as a little bit of a metric of progress as well. But today I want to home in on the scales and why they'll float up and down. Now, people have different kind of expectations in terms of how often they like to weigh themselves on a weight loss journey. Some people do it weekly, some people do it monthly, some people do it every day. And in a recent journey of weight loss, and this is typically how I do things, is I've been weighing myself daily. Now, I don't recommend this to everyone because most people allow themselves to basically stop doing the things that they need to do in order to lose weight when the scales don't say what they want. But it's important to recognize that those daily fluctuations usually aren't body fat. And when we're on this journey, we want to be losing body fat over time. And a good way to think about this is that comes off slowly over time. So if you are weighing yourself quite frequently, e.g. daily, and the scales are moving quite a lot and they're fluctuating, chances are all that fluctuation, or most of it, isn't body fat. But if you can see a downward trend overall coming off over time, that's likely body fat. So if you're seeing the scales go up half a kilo or a kilo, which I did in my case sometimes on my journey recently where I've lost half a stone in 4 weeks, there could be a day where I'm going up and down around a kilo. And I'm quite light, so people that I know that I have who are clients who are on a journey, they can fluctuate even more, that between 1, 2 and 3 kilos, and essentially that's quite a lot of weight. So that can really worry you that what you're doing isn't working. Then you can get into the mindset where it's like the toys are out of the pram, what's the point, and I'm going to stop doing this. But the reason for them fluctuations can be a number of things. It could be that you've had a poor night's sleep, and mostly it'll be related to water retention. That might be based on something that you've eaten. You've had quite a carby meal. You tend to retain a little bit more water, which will mean that you weigh heavier on the scales the next day, following obviously the food that's in your gut as well. And there's just a whole host of other factors that can play havoc with day-to-day fluctuations. As mainly I train females, so a big one is the menstrual cycle. Females can weigh a variety of different weights over the course of that cycle. So there's different methods in that. We can sort of just educate ourselves on that by understanding that the scales are going to fluctuate, so we can weigh ourselves quite frequently. And again, as I say, as long as we're seeing a downward trend overall, that's the most important thing. But we might see day-to-day fluctuations. Like you can see, I'm just going to put some images on the screen now so you can see the results of my weigh-ins that I've been doing over the last 4 weeks. And what you can't see here is a complete straight line. You can see a lot of fluctuations essentially going up and down, which is completely normal and to be expected. But I think unfortunately when people approach the weight loss, they just want to see that weight come off steadily every single day or every single week. And I can tell you with absolute certainty with any client that I've ever helped, it just doesn't go that way. You might well have 1, 2 or even 3 weeks where that's the case, and then it'll go up a little bit, then it'll drop back down a little bit. And we've just got to get to accepting that, as I said at the beginning, the scale weight is just only one metric in which we're using to track progress. And what we need to do, especially when we know what we're doing is working or has worked in the previous week. We just need to stick with and trust the process. And that's something I say to clients a lot. Just trust me and trust the process with it. Because if you stop doing the things that got you the weight loss before, then you're definitely not going to be losing weight. But again, circling back to what I was saying in terms of the actual fluctuation, it isn't body fat. And so to reaffirm, if something is coming down slowly over time, it's body fat. And if the scales are going slowly up over time, it's probably body fat. But if they're fluctuating quite a lot, then chances are that's not body fat, and that's not something necessarily to worry about. Maybe you can just, with a little bit of understanding now you know this, or education, look back and go, okay, cool, maybe yesterday's evening meal was a little bit carb heavy. Maybe I did this, that, and the other the day before, and that might be why the scales are showing up a little bit heavier today. But I'm not going to let that deflect me from doing the things that I need to do, from doing the work, so to speak, because I know that if I keep doing this and I keep showing up, then I'll get the results that I want to get. But if we're fixated on the scales and seeing that as the only metric of progress, and this is something that I battle with sometimes with clients even after a period of time, because it's all they ever know. They've only ever known to be working towards a certain number on the scales. So sometimes we have to move away from that number on the scales as the target, accept that it's one metric of progress, and if it's coming down over time, then that's good. But look towards other metrics like clothes sizes and how they feel and measurements, and even compliments off partners and people around us and stuff like that, to say that essentially we're just looking better, which ultimately is going to have us feeling better about ourselves and more confident, which is why we're doing it. So I think key points here to remember are the scales fluctuating up and down over a short period of time is not body fat. We just need to accept that and be okay with it. We can make adjustments if we're finding that we're eating, if what we're eating is maybe having the wrong effect that we want long term and not making us feel good. But ultimately, those numbers on the scales should be trending down over time, but they shouldn't be a complete straight line. And we also should focus some of our goals and our focuses away from the scales, just so we're not allowing the scales to ultimately define our level of progress and our happiness with how we're doing. And we can do that by focusing on dress sizes and then ultimately how we feel. So as I say, to finish here, please, if you are weighing yourself, decide on a frequency in which you're going to be weighing yourself. Try and take the emotion out of it, and remember that if you keep showing up and you keep doing the work, you will get the results and they will come. But in the short term, just be okay with those scales going up or down a little bit, because if you keep showing up at the end of the day, you're going to get the results that you want. Thanks for tuning in for today's episode. I hope you found it useful. And if you did, you've got the power to share this message as well. So if you have a friend who might find this content useful, please share it with them, and we'll see you on the next episode.